All right, good morning. I have the pleasure to introduce one of my friends, Mr. Booth. We've known each other for about 7 years, and about 5 years ago, he let everybody know they love photography. And in that time, he's built up a business where he now goes to shows, gets pictures, sells his pictures to the bands for their publicity and all that. And on top of that too, what he started as basically a hobby, his pictures, a couple weeks ago, he's taking pictures with a cell phone, and his cell phone pictures are better than anything I could do with a $100,000 camera. He's also going into videography. He's shot a couple music videos so far. He's also starting his first short film. Without further ado, I'll give it to you.
Good morning, everyone. As he said, I'm a photographer and videographer. I started photography 8 years ago. I started in film, 35 millimeter. And I was taking pictures of random stuff, deer, birds, and kind of whatever I have you. My composition was crap. I didn't know any. And then I eventually dropped it for some reason. I don't know why. But eventually got back into it and started working with bands, local bands in Rochester. Some of you probably know Montage Music Hall. Working with a lot of those bands, I built up my portfolio and my credentials, so to speak. And so I started working with more bands, and I eventually got into a publication called New York State Music. And so with them, I started doing bigger shows, like that's at the Army, Iceland Hills, Papa Roach, I've done Disturbed, Chevelle, Offspring, some 41. So doing the bigger shows and stuff, but I like doing the smaller ones like Montage, Bug Jar, what else? The Armory, and a few other places around here. As I said, I started in photography, and I've been doing it for 5, 6, 7 years now. This year I wanted the goal, as I did a music video, this is how things kind of progressed. The scene that we used the music video for, I was like, this would be a great short film. And it initially started off me like, oh, it'd be cool to just follow someone camping throughout the woods and they got lost. That was kind of, but when I got a hold of my buddy who was a director, who, as a hobbyist, he's a director of cinematography. He has a lot of knowledge in pre-planning and pre-production. That's his main thing. So he got involved and took this idea and spun it into this character named Alex. His dad passed away, but they always went camping on 4th of July weekend. He wakes up to having this nightmare, this premonition, which the idea of him waking up in a nightmare was actually me a week before. I woke up in the middle of the night. It sounded like someone was saying my name. It was a dream, but it was so real. And so that was an idea to use for this. But he wakes up, has this bad dream. It's called a bad feeling. And he gets up, he starts getting packed, and he's got this photo of his dad, him and his dad, camping. So against his better wishes, he goes out. It's actually the Finger Lakes National Forest, which isn't too far, like hour 40 minutes from here. We're actually camping while we're doing this, so it was kind of cool that we could take advantage of just being out in the wilderness. He eventually meets this other character, Mike, who ends up being a killer, but he doesn't know it. But the film starts off with Alex looking at someone burying a body, but he doesn't know who's in the grave. And in the end, we see that. And so it was kind of like, the idea was we wanted the protagonist to not win. The goal of this is we're trying to tell a story where the audience is kind of like, oh, we think we know what's going on throughout the whole thing, and then at the end, to start this off, as Alex 25 stands in the shadows of a dense forest, watching silently as a figure digs a shallow grave, the moon casts an eerie glow over the scene. The figure turns slowly to face Alex, but he can't make out his face. So we're kicking this off with, we see Alex seeing someone burying a body, and he's like, he doesn't know who it is. As the figure turns, he can't make out, which I have a fencing mask, that's what we're going to use to block out the character's face, so you can't make out in a dark scene, you won't be able to tell, especially because we're going to make sure we have hoodies and stuff. So that's how it starts. A lot of times you see in the films, the hero, whoever the main character is always, and we wanted to flip the script on that. We wanted to have the audience root for him and try to make it look like there's a spirit, we're actually having this spirit, which is Alex, trying to find a way to have him interact without interact. Which the idea is we want to try to make him look like he's about to be warned, but eventually it doesn't work. And Mike the killer, it's a crime of opportunity. They said they said it's kind of like almost like Shutter Island, and number 23 are kind of some of the inspirations from this. The weird twist of fate. And it's the first time I'm doing one because I wanted to try to push myself. That's why I started photography, and I've kind of grown my experience, and now I'm at a place where I want to try to do something different. And that's why I got into doing video and filming. Like, I'm actually working with a band where I'm doing a couple shows, I'm doing a live music video for them towards the end of the year. So, trying to do something different. And it's very challenging, especially getting into editing and all that kind of stuff.
How much of a crew do you have?
For that project, well, so we have 2 actors. We have myself, which I'm technically the director. I don't know how to do that, but we're figuring out as we go. Then we have my director for cinematography, DPs, what they usually know, and they're responsible for all the lighting, the scene, the coloring. That's their main objective. But he does a lot of, he's very good at creative and pre-production, pre-planning. So that's being him. We're trying to find more crew because we don't want to have the DP and director trying to do everything like assistant stuff. Kind of four catching right now. Sometimes you'll have 10, 15 people depending on the scope and scale of your project.
Your script, you have it written out as a story? How faithful, once you start filming, are you staying?
My director, he likes the dialogue to be small and limited. He wants the dialogue to be meaningful and impactful and not just random words. But he wants the actions, the shots, and the scenes to kind of tell more of the story. So we do have a dialogue. We're actually working that, flushing that out with our two actors. But it's not, it's only going to be, it's 8 minutes long. Like our goal is 8-10 minutes for this. We actually have a lot planned. The one actor, his name is William, his tone is very devious. And that was why my DP suggested him. Some of our production meetings, I got creeped out when he was talking in his tone and his voice, and that was kind of what we're going for. One of the scenes is Alex is sitting in a pond, Mike comes up, and one of the dialogue is, "Oh, I would kill anyone for this spot." And that's kind of how Alex and Mike meet, and it's kind of like, well, it's going to be in that tone. The dialogue kind of like free form, like if they on spot something changes, it's not like hard as stone because sometimes things change on the spot. And one challenge we'll have too, since we're in the woods, is lighting. He's bringing in a couple power stations. I just bought a power station because as you probably guys have learned, lighting is very key. Lighting can make or break a film, photos, anything. Can entirely change the mood. So I was going to bring, that was on my list, I was going to actually bring one of my light kits, but I totally forgot.
You brought it, Tom.
That's another thing too, location scouting, that's really big. Some people are good, they can roll to a spot and they can, that's not me, this is our pre-planning. As you get the vibe, during a nighttime or evening shot, like, imagine Michael Myers or Jason walking through, running around, like that's, for our scene, I wanted this place because it's a good camping site. I wanted to get the feel of someone actually camping, not in the forest, going through trails and stuff like that. Scene selection and shot selection, that's very, very, very important. My director of photography, we want to flush out the script between the actors and stuff, and then once he's done that, he's gonna do the storyboard, scene writing, because that's his forte. He's going to help me kind of understand. But I was going to show, I'm doing some videos and stuff like that to kind of get used to the gear that I'm using, to kind of understand and like get different perspectives. So this is actually one of the ones that
What else did you notice about those images?
So it's like first person.
It was in first person. What tied it all together? What set the tone of that?
The
You want-
angle?
The angles
Like,
work.
It was like as if, well, he walked with the camera, obviously.
You got the production, but what's holding it together?
The sound.
The sound.
And it's like the music in the background. It's like
Yeah.
It sounds just as
It sounds
important
like,
as
like as if it was a music video.
I was kind of just walking around, just seeing what I could film, and kind of just, like I said, this is a lot of just test stuff, so there wasn't really, that's another thing too, is make sure there's, anything you get, make sure there's a reason why you're doing it. Every shot has a reason, because especially in filming, in short films, you know, you want to keep your audience engaged, and if, you know, things aren't engaging enough, you're gonna lose your audience. So, but this is kind of just me, like, I saw this and I was like, I love that pan. Does anyone know the Rochester St. Patrick's Day Parade?
Mhm.
So, this was cool. This is more of like a documentary, kind of like the different angles and shots and stuff, and I love that I found this on my music site that I use. Another thing too is, I was doing this all handheld. I have a gimbal over there. I thought this was kind of. These guys were cool. I say I kicked out of the music because I wanted to showcase what they were doing, but I didn't want the music to compete with them. So I like this because it was kind of. Oh, and I had a filter on this because middle of the day lighting is always key. So there's a thing called ND filters that helps. You can help reduce the sun without actually changing your settings.
So like evens it out. So it was,
I don't have it with me.
oh,
Well, what I
okay. They're
liked,
wearing kilts.
this was cool. And I made sure to include the audio that I was capturing. I did because I wanted to kind of give a little more depth into the showcase, like the excitement that was going on.
This is my brother's favorite holiday because he's wearing gold.
And coming up, someone actually stopped two of the girls in front of me. There we go, got music selection, sound selection. You know, so now you get the vibe of St. Patrick's Day, you know, it's kind of flows
That was for the eclipse. Wasn't
like this. This is, I'm just getting into video last year or so, but having experience in photography kind of lended a hand in helping, you know, seeing things, you know, in a art and creative way. I've done a couple wedding videos as well, which those are super stressful. And let me tell you, if you don't capture certain things, your butt's on the line. Well, another thing too is when you're doing a lot of editing, I don't have a lot of space on my MacBook, so once I'm done with something, I transfer it over to my external, and get it right up here, and load in my next project. You don't mind a little music, do you?
No.
Okay. For anyone who's curious, this is DaVinci Resolve. This is a very not user-friendly software. Music selection is very key. This is a project I'm trying to get out. It's a showcase of bands that I've worked with, and it's kind of like my promotional material. So this is kind of insight into video editing. Now we should make that a little- Like I said, we don't mind a little. So this is a compilation of videos that I've done over the last couple of years with the bands. And actually the last one, Fight From Within, that was actually at a festival in Rapid Cedar, Niagara Falls. And it was amazing, the lighting was amazing. It was just so much, I was going there to do photos, I ended up doing video, and that's why I should have said the internet for this, but that's why.
What'd you see in that video?
Can they talk after they sing that song?
Yeah, they Who said,
believe they
said
can.
different?
The different angles, different lighting. You notice how the camera is always moving? But how about the beginning? I wanted to point out the use of black space
Oh,
to time off with the music there. So sometimes you don't even have to have visuals to give, because it creates an anticipation and all that too.
one thing I'll say that's I've learned the hard way is so frames per second, there's 24, 60, 120, there's other ones, those are the main ones. 24 frames per second. I learned this recently. Video is actually stills. So we have 24 frames in a second. So 24 frames per second. So that's actually, when you slow it down, like you'll see, if you really slow it down, you'll see frame, which is a picture. It's just all sped up.
Mhm.
This is why I say earlier, gear doesn't make or break, but you have to know what you want to do. I can't shoot 60 frames per second in higher quality than I want to because this camera just doesn't support it. So one piece of advice is, if you ever decide to go down and get gear, make sure you know what you want to get, what you want to use it for. Because down the road you might be like, crap, now I don't have, but I've had this for a couple of years and I just started getting the videos. So I have to stick with what I got until I hit the lottery. But make sure you know what you want to do and what your gear is capable of, or else you'll be like me and can't do certain things. So, because I want to get into sports videography. I'm actually trying to work at my local school that I graduated from. But when I researched a lot of YouTube on sports videography, a lot of times they do slower frames, 60 frames per second, for certain action scenes and stuff like that. Sometimes you see a sports commercial or a Nike commercial or anything like that, you'll see, slower frames. I can't do it, the setup, unfortunately, so that's my one main takeaway. You want variety in your shots. You can't just explain just like this for 20 minutes. That's one thing I've learned. You need variety in your shots, and wide angle, close angle, pan, tilt, all that kind of. So different angles. Also, different angles tell different stories.
Let me ask you this, so your shot selection, when I first met you and you've been taking pictures forever, and then you started taking pictures of events a couple of years ago, your shot selection just from like the shots last week at the Eclipse, it's amazing what you catch now. What do you see different as a photographer that you've noticed when you're looking at shots or if you're setting up a shot? That's a loaded question.
It is very good. No, so it's hard to, one thing is it's hard to explain. It's like, I'm all self-taught. I learned everything myself. And through other people that I've met and a lot of YouTube searching. YouTube is wonderful for, but it's kind of like one of those things where I just know. It's like I kind of just, I look at it before I look through the screen, but also too, it's like like pre-production, you want it pre-planning, you want to figure out what you're taking a photo of before you go to a location, especially things that are time sensitive, like the Eclipse. But when you have time for certain things, you can, or like I'll go to a park and I'll just wander around and kind of just see what captures, like Watkins Glen, for example. I've gone there 20 times, I've caught different things every time. It's just, sometimes it depends on the mood you're in, sometimes it depends on what you're looking for specifically, where you've seen someone else's shot.
If you are shooting a dark scene, how do you shoot it?
We're filming outdoors, so it's going to be dark, which is intentional. We want the dark we want, but obviously you can't film in complete darkness. So you have to recreate natural light. So he's bringing his light setup But, so, one of the things is backlit. Like, one of our shot scenes we want to is our main character Alex, running through the woods, and he wants to be backlit. So we want to create the moonlight, natural. You know, we might have it, but it may not be the way, we have to set up in a way where it looks natural, but it also helps tell the story.
It's easier to film bright and then darken post, because it's hard to lighten up
Yes,
if you go too dark.
that's why lighting is key, because you can darken things, but you can't light up things. So my gear that I use, that I built up over the years, as you can see this is my film setup that I recently just acquired. This is what I use for film, but I also use it for photos and stuff. And this is mainly my photography camera for the multitude of lenses. But as I've learned recently, you can have $100,000, $200,000 pieces of equipment, gear, everything, but if you don't know how to use it, gear's not gonna make your film quality better. It's you knowing your gear, knowing what to do.